بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد, my brothers and sisters, we are coming to a close of the series of classes on marriage, and let me begin with a dua that I hope these will be useful to you in making and keeping and maintaining marriages which will be a source of great happiness for you in this dunya and become a source of sadaqatul jariyah for you when you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We covered 19 questions. The 20th one is, does it help couples when they talk about their problems? And to whom should they speak, a stranger or someone they know? Now, before I answer that question, I would want to say one thing very clearly, which is, it helps if they genuinely want that help. Now, it might seem like, you might say, well, if they don't want the help, why do they even go to somebody? People do. People do to put up appearances. People do because they are being pressurized. People do because they don't want someone to turn around and say, well, you didn't even make an effort. So there is no insincerity in that. They don't really want help. They don't really want advice. They don't want that relationship to remain. And they are just wasting time, their time and the time of the council. As a rule, anytime anyone comes to me asking for help about their marriage, the first question I ask them is, do you want that help? Are you interested in this relationship? Because if you're really not interested in the relationship, then please don't waste my time. I don't have time to waste. I will talk to you only if you are genuinely interested, meaning that if I then tell you to do something, that you will sincerely do it, you will take the pain, you will take the trouble. If that is not going to be the case, then don't waste my time. I'm not forcing you. It's your relationship. It's not mine. And if you are just going to go and say, well, this is what is happening, this is what my husband is doing, this is what my wife is doing, and what must I do? No, this is not your agony aunt. You are not complaining. I'm not going to sit there and listen to your complaints. If you really are looking for a solution, then I will help you to try to find it. I will not give you a solution because my solution is not your solution. But I will help you to try to look and find your own solution. The problem with solutions is that many times they don't look very nice. You don't like those solutions. You know it's a solution, but it's too painful for you. You don't want to do it. Well, it's your call. You don't want to do it, don't do it. But then don't expect the marriage to last. It won't last. So first and foremost, ask yourself this question before we go into should you talk about it, or should you talk to strangers, should you talk to people who know you. First and foremost, ask yourself, do you really want to do something about your marriage? Now, it is helpful to talk to people. It goes without saying, because many things, the problem with being too close to something is that you can't see it. If I hold my hand, right up against my face like this, I can't see the lines on my palm. Perspective is a function of distance. You can only see things if you hold them at an arm's length. In a marriage, we are talking about this emotionally. We are not talking about this physically. So emotionally, somebody who is not involved in that, somebody who can stand outside and look in through the marriage, can see what is going wrong. The problem with people in the marriage is that whether you like it or not, you are part of the problem. What is going wrong is partially because of you. No matter how painful that sounds, that is the actual reality. Now, if you really want help with that, then you talk to somebody who can stand outside and look in and tell you, and then you believe them, and then you do what they tell you to do, meaning that you put yourself in their position, look at it, see the problem, and solve it. Obviously, it is important to talk to somebody you respect and whose advice you are willing to listen to. Usually, it is better to talk to strangers because they are perceived to be fairer and more objective, as they don't know either party. Uh, but they may have their own stereotypical opinions and their own prejudices. For example, some people might be more paternalistic in their approach, um, more, and some other people might be more feminist in their approach, and so their tendency would be to find fault with the man, and the other one, the tendency would be to find fault with the woman, and so on. So this is something, and some of these prejudices are very strong, and they are in the unconscious. So they are hardwired, but you can't see them. So it's very important, therefore, to also try to find people who are aware enough of themselves that they will give you a clear picture of what they are seeing. But it is important that you respect that person, whoever it is, and that you decide to listen to them and do what they tell you to do sincerely, even if you don't like it. That's the problem obviously, because if you like it, you will do it. But even if you don't like what they're saying, it's important to listen carefully and to try to do what they advise you to do. Now, if you're going to somebody just to, like an agony aunt, just to give you a shoulder to cry on, then that's a waste of time. Don't waste your time, and don't waste their time, because it will not have any value, right? No self-respecting, honest arbitrator with any dignity will agree to be biased in favor of one party or the other. If they do, then they are not fit for that position. A marriage can be as good or as bad as you like it, as you make it. So it is quite literally in your hands. We have been giving you the text of this, giving you the book itself, the link to the book, and at the end of the book I have put there is a index which with page numbers, which talks about the different pages on which different things have been mentioned. So go through that, and where inshallah this will be helpful to you. The important thing to understand is that, in a manner of speaking, a marriage is a very unusual I wanted to say unnatural, but let me use the word unusual. Unusual arrangement, right? It's a very unusual arrangement. It is not something which you find in nature, at least that often. Even if you do find in nature, people have this tendency of finding things in nature and say, well, the gulls do that, or the swans do that, or the elephants do that, or something. But do remember, you are neither a gull nor a swan nor an elephant. So what humans do is specific to humans. So it is not a natural arrangement that a man and a woman live together for the rest of their lives. Given that it is not natural, it is something which is, in Islam, that is the only halal way of doing it. There is no other halal way of doing it. You can't have a temporary marriage. The muta marriage is haram. It is not permissible in Islam. The having a relationship with a person of the other gender, of the opposite gender, and living together without the marriage, without being married to them, is haram. This is zina, this is adultery. and it is completely prohibited. Marriage is, that's why marriage is a legal agreement in Islam. The religious aspect of it, the blessing aspect of it comes from two things. One is that you have accepted this legal arrangement of living together, so therefore you are doing something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has permitted, and then the dua and so on and so forth of the people present which helps you. But effectively, a marriage is a legal agreement. Technically, you could go and get married in a court as long as you have two witnesses, and as long as both of you are adults and you have been, there is no coercion, and there is a wali for the lady, somebody who's there to, her guardian is there, that marriage is legal. There is no requirement for an imam or a maulvi or a religious scholar to be present and to give a khutbah and to make dua. All of these are the adornment, and they are the things that make it beautiful, and the things that are highly recommended that we do it, because if you are doing something like this which is so important, then it's important to have a khutbah, to make dua. And of course, this is the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. He did that for his daughter Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha's marriage. But strictly legally speaking, none of this is required. It's not a religious ceremony in that sense. But since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed that if a man and a woman want to live together, then they must be married. So therefore, this is something which is full of blessing. Now, it is something which is lifelong. We have the Islam permits divorce. So it permits the man to divorce his wife. It permits the wife to divorce her husband, and divorce in the sense of asking for a divorce, which is the khula, and the husband has to give it. I mean, if he is not giving it, then there has to be some valid reason, and if there is no valid reason and he's just being stubborn, then the qadi, the judge, has the power to annul the marriage. So effectively, the wife also can divorce her husband. Equal powers to both. The marriage, therefore, is therefore the marriage is something which is it is sacred in the sense that because it's a agreement, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prohibited us from reneging and breaking agreements. So that is why adultery is such a heinous sin and has such a terrible punishment associated with it. Of course, all the conditions for this punishment to be applied have to be fulfilled first. But effectively, if all of them are fulfilled, then the punishment is extremely severe. And the reason for that is because a person is breaking this oath, breaking this promise that he made to his partner, that they would be faithful to them. Divorce is permitted, as I told, divorce is permitted. So therefore, if somebody wants out of it, then they can get out from that marriage. The purpose in Islam, core purpose in Islam of marriage is twofold. One is for the husband and wife to remain on the straight and narrow, not to have a physical relationship or an emotional relationship for that matter with someone outside the marriage, and also to have children and to raise good children. So inshallah, the series of classes after this will be on raising a Muslim child, inshallah. So that is the purpose of the marriage, is to raise good children, to have good children, to raise good children. Of course, to have children is not in the control of the parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who gives, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this very clearly. He said, to some we give male, to some we give female, to some we give both, and to some we give nothing. So alhamdulillah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for healthy children, and to have the wisdom and the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise them as pious individuals who will be a credit to their parents and who will be a credit and an asset uh, to, to, to society itself. So that is why the focus of a marriage is very strongly on the raising of children, of good children. And that's the reason why it is important to have the home as a not just as a place of tranquility and grace and harmony, but also um, as a criterion against which the child can compare whatever else is happening in their life in the outside world. So, how should the child decide if the child is going to school, for example? How does this child decide whether the friends he or she has in the school are appropriate? Are they good people or not? Is by comparing them to their own home environment and see how would they fit in. So this is one of the things that I advise parents, and I tell them that always encourage your children to bring their friends home and be prepared to be shocked. I mean, don't show that shock on your face because some friends that they have in school, when they come in through your front door, you might go into some kind of screaming fit. Please don't do that, right? Behave well with them, treat them with dignity. They are your guests, and Rasulullah ﷺ said that the guest has the right to be honored. So therefore, it is very important to honor your guests, and no matter who those guests are. It doesn't say that the guest has to be some great pious scholar to be honored. If that person comes to your house as a guest, it doesn't matter who they are. It is your right and it is your job. It is their right to be honored, and it is your job to honor them. So when these children, when your children bring home their friends, be normal, treat them well, but have the home environment such that your child can see that friend in your home environment and decide whether this friend is worthy of being a friend or not. Now that's very important. And I always tell people one of two things can happen. One is that this freaky youngster who comes with your son or daughter changes because of the environment they find in your home, or your son or daughter leaves them. And as far as you are concerned, both are good outcomes. So don't criticize your children for having freaky friends. That is the environment that they are in. If they're going to those schools and so on and so forth, that's what they're getting. They can't find a friend from the moon. They can't find these great pious creatures in an environment which is full of sin. But at the same time, create a home where they have a comparison, where your children have a comparison, then they can compare and see whether or not that friend is acceptable and should be a friend or not. Now, having said that, also do understand this issue of, now you might say, well, should I not send children to school? No. Growing plants in a greenhouse may sound like a good idea, but that plant eventually can survive only inside the greenhouse. Greenhouse plants, if you put them out in the environment, then they die because they do not have the root system, they do not have the strength, they do not have the ability to sustain hardship in the outside environment. So they get too much of sun, they get too much of rain, they get a strong wind will knock them flat. You're growing the plants to live in the outside environment, so grow them in the outside environment. But give them the nourishment that is required for them to develop a very strong root system which will keep them anchored and will not blow them away with the first gust of wind. Now I'm giving you this as an example, but here it means a set of values and ethics and morals. And remember that children, and of course this applies to everybody in the world, but children listen with their eyes. They don't listen with their ears. They listen with their eyes. They don't care what you say until they see what you do. So as parents, we need to be super conscious of ourselves, what we do, how we do it, and ensure that we always, always, always portray an ideal model, no matter how difficult it is. It doesn't matter if sometimes you slip, because you are human, you will make mistakes. But by and large, an ideal model which the child can look up to. Children need parents they can look up to, not look down on. If they find parents who wake up for tahajjud and who pray tahajjud regularly, if they find parents, if they come into the house and they hear the sound of the recitation of the Quran, not by this qari or that qari, but by the mother or the father. And don't worry, don't say that, oh, see, my tajweed is not so good. Doesn't matter. Nothing stops you from improving your tajweed, but doesn't matter, even with your bad tajweed, recite the Quran. Let the sound of the Quran al-Kareem come out of your mouth, and let the walls and the curtains and the carpets be witness to it on the Day of Judgment. Let the trees be witness to it. When I was very little, when my mother was teaching me Quran, we would sit outside in our old house in Hyderabad, in our ancestral house. The room where she used to sit with me has a door which opens out into the garden. So she would tell me, recite loudly, let the birds and let the trees and let the air hear your voice, because on the Day of Judgment they will bear witness. So recite. Let the children be used to the sound of your voice reciting Quran. And as I told you, this is not a recitation competition. And if you need to, we all make mistakes. We all need to learn. Even people who know the rules of tajweed, we don't always pronounce things correctly. It doesn't matter. But recite Quran. Let your children see you praying. You are not doing it to show them. But like Rasulullah said, he said, don't make your houses into a graveyard, because it is not permissible to do salah in a cemetery. So he said, don't make your house into a graveyard. Pray at home. Not the first salah. The first salah has to be prayed in the masjid. But come home and pray the sunnah. Pray nawafil. Pray awabin and chasht and salatul duha and ishraq and tahajjud and so on and so forth. And just plain nafil salah. I mean, it doesn't have to have a name. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's, your devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do that. Right? And then in our behavior on a day-to-day basis, not only just worship. When you buy something, for example, from poor people, we find this all the time. People go, and when they are buying from street hawkers and so on, they bargain. Right? They fight tooth and nail to save some few paisa. And then they will go and sit in a 5-star restaurant, and they will spend on a meal what that poor street hawker probably earns in 1 year. There you don't bargain, because in that restaurant, if you bargain, you will look like a fool, and they won't throw you out, but nobody bargains there in a big 5-star restaurant. But you bargain with a street hawker. Now, don't do these things, because this first of all inculcates bad values, and secondly, it is so shameful and humiliating. Show dignity, show respect, and you don't show respect by acting pompous. You show respect by respecting other people. Always give more, don't give less. If the person, especially poor people, street hawkers and so on, if they ask you for $10, give 12. In charity, always be the first. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Sari'u ila maghfiratin. Allah did not say yamshi. Allah didn't say walk to the maghfirat of Allah. Allah said race, run towards the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't count pennies, count deeds. Make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam commonly used words in our language on a daily basis. All of these things help to make a good marriage. Because the more the husband and wife are focused on pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the happier the marriage will be, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless this marriage. And again I must say one final thing which I think I said it right at the beginning, which is focus on your duties, not on your rights. Because you will be questioned about your duties, not about your rights. And if you fulfill your duties, then automatically the rights of the other are being fulfilled. And if the other, your wife or your husband, fulfills their duties, your rights will get fulfilled. So focus on this. Be generous. Be generous. Don't be stingy. One of the worst things in life is to be stingy. Bakhil. Give more than what is asked. I have mentioned some of these things, so I don't want to repeat them, but some things are important enough to repeat. So prioritize in your life. Your marriage will be good if that is number one priority. Make it number one priority. And as I said, the purpose of marriage is to have a beautiful home and to raise good, pious, responsible children. If we do this, inshallah, then this marriage becomes and the home becomes a heaven on earth. Somebody asked Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu about this, and he said, heaven on earth is a pious wife. And of course the same thing applies to the husband. I'm not talking, when I say pious, I don't mean a pompous religious creature, no. I'm talking about somebody who is true to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and whose piety is seen in their akhlaq. A big smile on the face is a sign of piety, because it's a sign of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a sign of happiness with what Allah has given us. So piety is not expressed only in terms of how much of salah you pray and how many nawafil and how much of Quran you memorized or you know. It is expressed in terms of akhlaq, and this is the reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, on the day of judgment, the akhlaq, good akhlaq will weigh more heavy, they will have more weight than salah and saum, than prayer and fasting. Because good akhlaq have to do with each other, with human beings. Prayer and fasting is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He doesn't need it anyway. We do it because we need it, and we must do it. But Allah will forgive that even if there are some mistakes and so on in it, because it's not something that He needs. He needs nothing. But akhlaq have to do with people, and people need that. I need you to be good to me, you need me to be good to you. And that's why this has so much of weight and so much of value, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards it. Alhamdulillah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you and bless your marriages. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable you to find beautiful spouses who will be a means of khair and barakah and happiness for you in this life, and a means of sadaqatul jariyah for you in the life to come. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you spouses who will make dua for you sincerely from their heart. Dua for benefit for you, sincerely from their heart. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make you a spouse who will inspire your spouse to make that kind of dua. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you healthy marriages, sound marriages, full of joy, and protect you from all kinds of evil, all kinds of temptation, all kinds of negativity which we are surrounded with in this world. It doesn't matter what we are surrounded with, only that which goes inside us will affect us. And therefore I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us and protect all of you from all sorts of negative influences, negative thoughts, fears, apprehensions, and to give you strength in knowledge of Him in knowing him, in following the sunnah of his beloved Habib, his beloved Messenger Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.